Another interesting area that I found fascinating that you cover in the book is some of the failures of progressive ideas. Could you discuss what you would consider a failure of progressive idea?
Yeah, well, failure to implement them, failure of the policy.
Failure of the policy.
Okay, well, we've let's think about that. I don't know where I talked about that in the book. Help me here, Connie. Anything jump to mind?
Nothing is jumping in. I'm trying to.
Let me answer it a different way. One of the things that I'm not predicting in this book, because I think I could see some light at the end of the tunnel. But we have had in this in the last 100 years, the years that this book covered, pretty much, we had a progressive. We've had three progressive eras in the teens. Around World War I, where we had the Federal Reserve, which really mattered for stability in our country. We began the direct election of senators, which threw a lot of special interests out of the selection process. We had workers' compensation. Then the Roosevelt years speak for themselves: collective bargaining, Social Security, so much else. The Johnson years, for 3 years, we had everything from Medicare to Medicaid to civil rights to voting rights to Equal Opportunity Act, the Wilderness Act, Higher Ed Act, all these things. And what they're noted for, and this is about the failure, is, it took me a while to get there. Thanks for letting me filibuster for a moment. What happened was all of these progressive eras are very short. They last 2, 3, 4 years. And then
Why?
Because they make such dramatic change, in part because of pressure built, that there's always a pushback. So in 1938, Republicans made major gains and pretty much stopped any more change in the New Deal.
But stopping you there for a second, if you asked the population if they would get rid of Social Security and Medicare, almost nobody would support it. So there is support for that. So so I don't understand why after 2-3 years of policies that benefit all Americans and so many people that are so popular, why there would be pushback.
They don't see that. You see Social Security and Medicare.
You're saying afterwards.
Social Security passed in 1935. The first check was a woman in Vermont for, I think, $24, and that was 1940 or 41. Medicare wasn't obviously a great thing when the people Johnson would always say, he said, legislation sitting there on it, waiting for hearings, waiting for enacting, is like a fish on the front porch. You got to get it off the front porch quickly. And the longer the bill, think about the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act has made a huge difference in people's lives. 900,000 people, Obamacare, have insurance today in Ohio that didn't. We lost elections in 2010 partly because of the Affordable Care Act, because if it's not yet giving benefits to people, but the other side can attack it. And let me give you an example in Medicare. 1965 Medicare passed. Hubert Humphrey got on the phone at the direction of his vice president at that time, and began to call Southern hospitals. And he said to these, began to call Southern governors. And he said, if you don't implement Medicare and you don't integrate your hospitals now, you're not going to get Medicare dollars. And Grady Memorial, the greatest hospital probably in the South in Atlanta, one night they basically integrated that hospital. It used to be the main part of the hospital for white people, the inferior wings for African Americans, and Medicare said, nope, not anymore. You want Medicare dollars? The governor of Georgia, the mayor of Atlanta, and the hospital administrators had to act. And so but don't think that wasn't unpopular. Still not many blacks were registered to vote in Georgia in those days because civil rights had just passed. So when you do these major progressive things, they dramatically change the country. And now the Republicans still try to chip away at Medicare and Social Security, but they are very popular programs, but they weren't when they passed. And most people didn't even know they passed. Didn't really know what they were.